Hey everyone, it's Jessica Michaels here with another layout for the Shimmerz Paints design team. Remember, if you place an order, to use my name Jessica in the notes section of your order for a free gift. I am starting this layout off by coating some clear gesso on a background paper from Heidi Swaps, one of her collections. I think it was called Set Sail. And I think that's right anyways. And I've got like some miscellaneous bits here. So I've got some Cocoa Vanilla Studio that I'm using. This is an older kit at this point called Sunkiss. This was one of my absolute favorite summery kits. And I have pulled out some papers from that to use. I've pulled out an acrylic title by Color Cast Designs, which was in the most recent subscription kit. And I pulled out, of course, a bunch of mixed media goodness to use. So I'm just preparing these little waves with a border punch. I just wanted to make a bunch of these little strips to place on my page and kind of layer about, because I've got some photos here today that I'm using of my son in my sister's swimming pool, and she had this giant like goose looking like tube, and he absolutely just loved it, and he just had so much fun on this thing, and he literally just kind of like cruised around on this thing for hours in her pool, and it was just adorable. So I saw that Jenny from Scrappin Happy Studio released some adorable flair, so I got some canvas flair with these kind of geese on them, and they were on tubes, so it was absolutely perfect. And I said to her when she released it, I have the perfect photos for this flair, so I'm going to be using that today too. But my gesso at this point's dry, so I've just spritzed down my background paper with some water first, and then I'm using some of these sprays in some Vibez and Color Splash products. I'll link them all down below and all the colors that I've used, because there's quite a few that I'm actually using today. I know the lighter blue there is called Rockin, and that's in a Color Splash, and then I'm mixing in some Vibez in Seize the Day, Rockefeller Blue, and Frostbite. So that dark one there in the middle is Seize the Day, and then the bottom two, kind of that purplish one, is Rockefeller Blue and Frostbite. So the one is a Spritz in the Rockefeller Blue, the other is a Vibez in the Frostbite. So I'm using lots of various products today. This is more of the Rockin. I'm just kind of splattering on some little drips and drops, and just using the nozzle for that. I like to unscrew them and just kind of flick it onto my page to add a little bit more color and dimension. And then I'm using my paintbrush and some water just to kind of like spread some of that around if I don't like it. I'm also using my paper towel roll to kind of dab up any of the pools if it gets to be too much on my layout, because the gesso will hold up to these heavy wet mediums on your paper and try to prevent some of the warping, but it's not completely magic. It does help with the blendability and being able to hold the wet mediums, but it still does warp your paper sometimes. So a lot of times I'll actually wait till it's almost dry and I'll run it through my laminating machine, but for this one I just left it go. It's gonna flatten out when I put it into my album, so I'm not super worried about it. I'm gonna go ahead and work on my photos at this point while that's drying, so I just set that aside. I'm gonna mat them with some smooth white cardstock. And then I pulled out another paper from, I think that's from this, I'm not sure if that's from Set Sail or not. I can't remember offhand. I think it is, but don't quote me on that. But I just pulled out one of the smaller papers there, and I am just matting my photos just in a strip that's going to just run across my page. Nothing crazy or super fancy going on today other than the mixed media. I'm going to go ahead and rough up these edges though, because that's kind of my jam. I love to distress all of my edges, so I felt that that just kind of brings in some texture to your layout. And then these little strips, I'm just going to layer them about my page. My mixed media is pretty dry at this point. I did use some Color Splash in the Pearl Next Door. It's like a white color to spritz kind of on there. And then I'm going to pull in some white acrylic paint for some additional splatters as well. So you'll see me doing that here in a minute. Here's that Pearl Next Door coming in, and it was pretty, but it just didn't give it the pop that I was looking for and the marble effect that I was looking for. So here's my acrylic paint that I got out. I just add a little bit of water to it using my paintbrush, and then just flick it onto my background. It's really super easy and simple. You want the paint to be in a spreadable kind of consistency. So you don't want it super, super thin to where it's watery, but you want it so it's not so thick, because if you try to do it when it's straight paint, it won't come off your paintbrush. So that's why I add a little bit of water to it. I've got my strips here. I'm just going to start gluing them down to my layout. So I'm going to add a couple here at the top, and then I'm going to add a couple on the side and a couple on the bottom. And then I still felt like it was missing something after I added these on. So I'm going to end up actually pulling out my sewing machine. I just use just a cheap Brother sewing machine from Walmart, and I like to add my machine stitches on there. I'm just going to use white thread today. I'm just going to kind of go back and forth through my stitches. So I'll show you that finished part in a minute here. But I'll speed this up as I'm gluing these down. But as you can see, I've got all my little waves there now at this point. So I am just, I've added white splatters on top of my waves actually. And then I'm using this stencil and just running over this with some Distress ink and Blueprint sketch, just to add a few little circles and another little pop of color on top of that mixed media. I love layering stencils on top of mixed media. I just think it gives it just another pop of color, and it just looks so cool. So I've added my machine stitches there as I showed you, and I'm just going to start building my embellishments now. I'm not going to add a ton of stuff to this one, so I'm just going to add a sun up here and my little June, and these embellishments are from Pretty Little Studio. I've pulled out lots of random bits on this layout today, just kind of pulling from anything summery that kind of goes along with this. This little tab is another one from Pretty Little Studio. I just stamped my date on there using some intense black ink from Honeybee Stamps, and then I'm just gluing that down with some Nuvo glue. I'm going to actually add some thread behind my little canvas flare, and that's something that I just love to do. I add it all the time. I'm also pulling out these Bloom and Grow little florals. I love these. I love adding these to summer layouts. They are just so, so good, and I've just been using them on literally anything and everything. Cocoa Vanilla Studio seriously makes like the best flowers. I love them. They're an Australian-based company, so sometimes it is hard to get some of their stuff, but usually I can find their stuff at a cherry on top. So I'm pretty lucky that I'm on their team as well, and I can order stuff from them whenever I like. So, and they just have the best flowers. So I've got this little binder clip. It's actually been on my desk for a little while, hanging out, and just like some miscellaneous embellishments that I have here, and it matched my layout, so I'm going to go ahead and throw it on here. I'm going to use that right beside my color cast acrylic piece for the title. I love how this mixed media dried. I just think it looks so pretty, kind of peeking out and around my photo strip, and mainly I'm just using embellishments to just kind of enhance my mixed media at this point in my photos and kind of draw the eye back to the photos, because of course that's the main part of why I'm scrapbooking, to document my memories and my photos. So I'm just using everything else to enhance that, right? So I'm just adding some embellishments here just to finish this one off. I'm using my Nuvo glue. If your Nuvo glue clogs up, I just take a corsage pin to it. Sometimes I have difficulty with it clogging when it gets towards the end of the bottle like this. So I just have a corsage pin in my drawer here in my desk that I just poke through that tip every time I need to use it whenever it's clogged up. So it only tends to happen to me usually at the end of the bottle, and I don't know why. Maybe it gets a little bit thicker maybe towards the end just from all the air exposure, but that's all I do with mine, is just use that pin. So there, I'm just adding little bits. I'm using leftover embellishments from previous layouts that I've cut in half, which is something I also like to do, is cut those flowers in half, kind of tuck them in and around photos, and then you don't have to use an entire flower or embellishment. You can just cut it in half and use it for something else. And then here I'm just taking some glue dots and securing some thread behind my canvas flare so I can pop that down on my page. That glue dot, they're super, super sticky, so it's a really good adhesive to use on those canvas flare, because I know that those are not going to go anywhere at this point. They are there for life. And then here I'm just using some 3D foam squares just on the other half of that, because that sun is a chipboard sun, so it's already popped up off my page, so I kind of had to match that dimension with the June sign, so I just used some 3D foam squares for that. And then just popping this little guy up as well at the bottom. I'm going to add a little bit of journaling, not a ton. I don't have a lot to say about this because it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm just going to say that it was my sister's pool. But yeah, so it's pretty easy today. I'll link below all the products that I've used today, especially those mixed media products from Shimmerz, in case you want to grab any of those from the Shimmerz shop. Just remember to use my name, Jessica, in the notes section of your order for a free gift. And I'll link below anything else that I can remember that I've used. I know that I've used lots of miscellaneous kind of bits and pieces on this one, so kind of all over the place here, but again, it kind of gets me using some of the stuff and gets me using my stash. So I really like mixing different collections together, and you end up with something like this, which is just kind of wild and crazy, but still uniform all at the same time, if that makes sense. And then this is actually from Echo Park, has a new collection out called Summer Break. It's one of my favorites right now, and this is actually from the sticker book. I'm just popping up these little bathing suit pieces using some smaller 3D foam squares, and I'm just gonna put this little guy up top, and that's pretty much going to do it for this one. So again, I'll link everything below that I've used. The last thing that I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go through and add some sequins on here. These are some Catherine Pooler sequins, and I'm just going to add these on here. You can also get sequins in the Shimmerz shop as well. They also have them there. I just have these in my stash, so I'm just going to use these today, and I'm just using my sequin tool and some Nuvo glue to add those on. So here is the finished layout. I hope you guys enjoyed this process today, and I've inspired you to use some mixed media, or at least try using some mixed media. And if you have any questions for me, please list them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you all have a great day. Bye-bye.